Hi
This is
there.
Emmy Thurber. Well, I have a question, if I may. Um, 2 days ago, I met with a neighbor who's a Swedish lawyer. I think has a very big job at Apple, and has a child, a sixth grader and an eighth grader, and he's extremely concerned about the lack of open schools. And he feels his kids are really suffering, and he feels the United States is handling this very inappropriately. And he said in Europe, schools are of course open and often have been open for a bit of time. And he even believed, he's been reading a lot, that in democratic states like our state, we're not opening schools because this is pressure from the teachers unions and other political people who want to damage Trump. And he said this is a common feeling in European left-wing newspapers and so forth. So it's prompted me to do a lot of reading about what Europe's been doing with schools. And I tried to explain to him all the political nuances of our local systems, et cetera, and how badly I think it's been handled at the top. It might have been different. But I wondered what you think about the reopening of schools. And of course, I know in high schools, I think all over Europe, they really are pretty much open. And of course, we know that Sweden didn't really shut down. He said that he and his family are thinking of leaving the United States, and that many of his European friends feel the same. And that would be a great loss for us. So if you could address that.
Sure. Thank you for the question, Emily. And it's one we're getting a lot. I think you're right about the situation in the United States needing to have been managed much better. I think if that had been done, we might be in a position now where we could safely reopen schools. The key consideration here is what we can do to have schools ready to be open and have the resources available to serve the students as they come back. All of the discussion right now, whether it's about going back to school in person or in distance learning, is over the matter of how many can we bring back and how should we do it. In the best case scenarios, at the level of infection rate that we are getting here in Santa Clara County, 50% occupancy of the schools is the maximum that's likely to happen. That means half the population at most could be handled at one time. What's necessary to make that a safe handling? For that, we have to rely on the best possible science. And that's another area where I believe our government has fallen short. And I'm not talking about the national government now. I'm talking about here in California. The guidance we're receiving is not consistent with the highest standards that research centers are producing. In particular, as a letter from the teachers of many of the districts in Santa Clara to Dr. Sarah Cody this letter has pointed out, it is not geared to preventive testing for COVID-19, preventing the spread of infection on campuses. And for that, many things are required, including on-site testing, a quick turnaround with results, measures in place that enforce a minimum 6-foot distancing, the personnel trained to do this, and equipment that recirculates the air in classrooms with very fine particle elimination, filtering, that we have to retrofit for. We're in the process of doing all those things. I understand the learning loss that inevitably occurs with distance learning. I want to be back in the classroom as quickly as we can. But I really am thinking when I say that about the old in-person situation. I wonder how good the hybrid situation is going to be when the students are 6 feet apart with a plexiglass wall in front of the teacher and everyone wearing face shields. I just can't imagine that that's going to be like the old atmosphere where students were surrounding tables and teachers would walk from table to table. And all of these things would just be part of a natural interaction among humans, as opposed to the artificial one that we are going to have. And finally, I think no one is considering the difficulty at high schools for providing teachers. So what's happening to the kids on the days that they're not in school when it's not there 50% in the rotation? If the teachers are all engaged in their classrooms, who's teaching the others? Are they now on their own? So that instead of doing asynchronous learning 1 day a week, they're doing it 3 days a week? That too doesn't sound like a great improvement to me. So I think there are all sorts of difficulties. The key thing is to get the population to a level where we're not in a tier 2, but in a tier 4, the lowest level, where we can do things more effectively and get people on campus in somewhat more relaxed circumstances. And I don't see that happening with the level of cooperation we're getting from the public at large. So I understand the teachers' concern. They want to come back safely. And I don't think they want zero risk. No one is advocating zero risk. They want to be told what the level of risk is in meaningful terms. So to refer to that study that's in the teacher's letter, there's a chart in there that shows the likelihood of a COVID-19 infection for various size school populations brought back to campus. And for our particular level, 4 to 7 right now, 4 to 7 new infections daily per 100,000. There's a sample there of a district that had an infection rate of 5. At that infection rate, with 500 kids, there's a 97% chance that one of them will be infected, at least one. At 1,000 kids, the probability rises to more than 99% that at least one of them is infected. With relaxed standards, one infection could do a lot of harm. That's why we need the standards to be as strict as they can. We're not there yet. We are installing very high capacity air filters in our classrooms. This is an extra expense and we're paying it. When these things are ready, when we have convinced the teachers that we have taken every possible measure to reduce risk to what could be considered a safe level, and then we have to give them the choice about whether with their particular situation, their risk tolerance can tolerate that risk level. When we're there and we can figure out how to allocate the resources that we have in terms of, then I'm sure we will be reopening. But we're not there yet, and that's the sad truth. And I understand the desire of your neighbor from Sweden. I hope he doesn't leave. I too agree that would be a terrible loss. But there's very little we can do until we can get to that safe level that persuades teachers it's safe for them to return.
Thank you. I shall try to encapsulate what you've said and send him an email. We'll see. Yeah, it'll be a great loss to lose people like Martin.
Right, I agree. All those people enrich our students, and it's sad to have them go.